Good morning, everyone. The Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic will come to order, and I want to welcome everyone who's here today, as well as our witnesses. Without objection, the Chair may declare a recess at any time. Pursuant to Rule 7D of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, and at the discretion of Chairman Comer, Mr. Jordan, a member of the full committee may participate in today's hearing for the purposes of questions. I now recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Welcome to our first of many hearings concerning the coronavirus pandemic. We are tasked to review all the effects of the pandemic, as well as decisions made during the pandemic, not just the origins of COVID-19. However, we are here today at our first hearing to ask the fundamental question that this body has failed to ask 3 years ago. Where did COVID-19 come from? Did it come from a natural spillover, transferred from a bat to an intermediate source to a human? In other words, did it come from nature? Or was it the result of a laboratory or research-related accident? In other words, did it come from a lab? This question is fundamental to helping us predict and prevent future pandemics, protecting our health and national security, and preparing the United States for the future. This question is not one that should be dismissed out of hand, and it cannot be taken lightly, and it must be investigated thoroughly, responsibly, and honestly. An investigation based on facts, expert opinions, and without intentional or unintentional bias. That is what the Select Subcommittee is tasked to do. Follow the facts, conduct a fair investigation, and seek to deliver the truth to the American people. Ultimately, we will strive to produce a product that will serve future generations, enhancing our capabilities and operating procedures when we are faced with the threat of another pandemic. That is what is deserved. That is what Americans should expect from their government. And this is one more way we can provide for our defense. And the work has already begun. Thus far, the Select Subcommittee has sent letters of inquiry to the Department of Health and Human Services, the White House, and Dr. Francis Collins of the National Institute of Health, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the former Director of National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and Chief Medical Advisor to the President. EcoHealth Alliance, recipient of NIH funding grants to perform coronavirus research, the Department of Energy, Department of State, and the FBI concerning their intelligence and investigations surrounding the evolution of COVID-19 and any forensic findings they may have discovered. And over the weekend, we released a memo highlighting new evidence that suggests that Dr. Fauci prompted the drafting of a publication that would disprove the lab leak theory, that the authors skewed evidence to achieve that goal, and that the current chief scientist of the World Health Organization was an uncredited co-author, even though he appears to have contributed to the piece entitled Proximal Origins. I think we've already established that the Select Subcommittee will try to leave no stone unturned to try to find the truth. Unfortunately, the question of the origins has been politicized. That's no secret. It has driven most people to their corners rather than driving apolitical scientific debate or discussion. Some say the virus came from nature. That, according to recent papers discussed in the New York Times, the science is dispositive. Some say it's too unique, too primed for human transmission, that there's too much circumstantial evidence that points to COVID-19 coming from a lab. As well, in 3 years, there's been no track found to prove that COVID-19 evolved naturally from an animal or a mammal or a tick to become highly infectious to humans. The truth is, we don't know the origins of COVID-19 yet for sure. We don't have a smoking gun. First, the science behind COVID-19. The genome of COVID-19 is inconsistent with expectations and is unique for its group of viruses. COVID-19 has both a binding domain optimized for human cells and a furin cleavage site, or a small part of the virus that makes it so infectious. That has never been seen before in a SARS-related virus. In other words, COVID-19 has unique characteristics that made it very infectious to humans. These have never been seen before in any other viruses of its type. Most viral outbreaks are slow and small. CDC data shows SARS infected approximately 8,000 people worldwide, and 8 in the US. Similar with MERS, which infected approximately 2,000 people worldwide. But COVID-19 was primed for human transmission. It has infected more than 750 million people worldwide. Dr. Redfield, one of our witnesses here today and a virologist, has even said he believes COVID-19 had a detour from nature to be educated how to infect humans. Second, the known research occurring in China. We know the Wuhan Institute of Virology was conducting gain-of-function research on novel bat coronaviruses by creating chimeric viruses, combining two viruses together to test infectivity and infecting mice with these viruses. Work that former COVID-19 task force coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, confirmed was, in fact, gain-of-function, contrary to statements by Dr. Fauci. We have learned that the Wuhan Institute has poor biosafety and was conducting this research at only biosafety level 2, described as the Wild West by Dr. Jeremy Farrar, a virologist from the UK, now chief scientist for the WHO. We have learned through a leaked DARPA grant application that with US taxpayer backing, the Wuhan Institute proposed inserting furin cleavage sites into novel coronaviruses, the same unique genetic aspect of COVID-19. And we know, according to a State Department fact sheet, the multiple researchers at the Wuhan Institute were sick with COVID-19-like symptoms in the fall of 2019, before the Chinese officially announced the outbreak. Third, concerning the actions of NIH and EcoHealth Alliance, records show that the National Institutes of Health, while the U.S. was under a moratorium on gain-of-function research, exempted EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute from this very ban. Records show that the National Institutes of Health allowed EcoHealth to conduct risky research on novel coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute without going through the Potential Pandemic Pathogen Department level review board. Records show that EcoHealth violated federal grant policy and failed to file its 5-year progress report for more than 2 years. Records show that EcoHealth violated the terms of its grant and failed to report an experiment that resulted in gain-of-function of a coronavirus at the Wuhan Institute. Fourth, for some reason that we do not yet know, leaders in the scientific community took action to attempt to convince the world that they should not take the lab leak theory seriously. Dr. Francis Collins stated he was more concerned with harm to international harmony than he was with investigating the lab leak. Dr. Fauci said the lab leak theory was a shiny object that will go away in time. The president of EcoHealth, Dr. Peter Daszak, orchestrated a letter in The Lancet that called the lab leak a conspiracy theory, a statement that directly benefited Dr. Daszak himself. And 4 scientists, after a conference call with Dr. Fauci, completely reversed their position. Dr. Christian Andersen said he found the genome inconsistent with evolutionary theory. And Dr. Robert Gary said he really can't think of a possible natural scenario, but a few days later published a paper saying the exact opposite. A paper based on the new emails we released claimed to be prompted by Dr. Fauci himself. And fifth, the intelligence. FBI Director Christopher Wray confirmed publicly that the FBI assesses COVID-19 most likely originated from a lab incident in Wuhan. And the Wall Street Journal reported the Department of Energy now also believes a lab leak is the most likely origin. These aren't run-of-the-mill agencies. The FBI used experts in biological threats and was reportedly supported by the National Bioforensic Analysis Center, and the Department of Energy used its own Z Division, experts in investigating biological threats. These are some of the facts as we know them, but there's so much more to do. We are here today to try and understand what and why. It's important to conduct this investigation. Discovering the origins is vital. It matters for the future of the world. And we aren't finished. We're just beginning. There will be more hearings and more inquiries and more documents discovered. And we will follow every lead. I look forward to hearing from our expert witnesses today, and I thank them for joining us today.